from my backyard farming. I'm going to share all that here. So there maybe my backyard aquaponics is always on a trial and error cycle. So it's every day learn something, and I'm very I'm very keen to make mistakes actually. So because mistakes makes you learn something new, and then you don't try to avoid that mistakes. So and my aquaponics, I have made many mistakes, and I'll be sharing one slide explaining what are those mistakes. Uh, and apart from that, just to introduce my other activities, I work as a research associate in the museum here in Northern Territory, Australia. It's more like a volunteering thing because of my passion in fish biology and fish taxonomy. Uh, and I also have my own firm kind of thing, Rainbow Analytics, which I started doing research services, data analytics, consultation, and everything. So you can see there are three credentials there. Uh, okay, so now what is aquaponics? Some of you might know what it is. Some of you probably hearing this for the first time. Uh, so in brief, we can say it is a combination of hydroponics and aquaculture. If you are from a fisheries background or aquaculture background, you know obviously what is aquaculture: growing fish, and there are a variety of methods how you grow fish. And hydroponics, maybe as a new term for some people, especially students. Hydroponics is actually growing plants. You can grow plants or veggies or flowering plants or anything, but in water instead of growing them in soil. So you grow them in nutrient rich water, and then that's called hydroponics. So in aquaponics, what we do is we just replace that nutrient rich water in hydroponics with the aquaculture water where we grow the fish. So you get all this fish waste in the system, and they are having many nutrients. So instead of adding external nutrients um, to to the hydroponic system, we can just use the waste, the water in which we grow fish, and all that nutrients can be used by the plants. So you combine those two technologies, and that becomes aquaponics. So this is a slide just showing different varieties of hydroponic systems. When you think about aquaponics, there is a lot of the main thing in aquaponics is it's a design. Yes, obviously it's growing fish and plants, but the most important part is how you design that system. There's a lot of plumbing involved in it, um, and it's very critical that you make uh, uh, design this in a way that it should work the way you intend what it is intended for. So uh, it, I'm just going to start my laser pointer so I can point out what I'm talking. So you can see there are 6 systems here, and each of them have a different name. They are all hydroponics, but having different names. Um, the first one is a nutrient film technique, NFT. So in all systems, what is common is a nutrient reservoir in the bottom. So all these methods are basically telling you how you can bring this nutrient rich water, how you can use that to feed the plants. And there are different ways how you can feed the plants, but at the end all this water is going to come back to the reservoir. So it's a cycle happening here. So from the nutrient rich reservoir, you pump the water to the grow bed where you actually grow the plants. That water comes back to the reservoir. So in all systems, this is somewhat what it is do, um, but based on the efficiencies, the people have developed different things. So in Newton film technique, what it does is it pump the water. That water is passed through the roots of the plants. Please note that here it's not fully submerged. It's only the base of the roots are in contact with the uh, nutrients. So it's basically a very thin layer of water flowing through, and that's why it's called nutrient film. And that water goes back to the reservoir. Uh, the second one is the deep water culture. So here you actually, uh, you know, there's a board on the top of the reservoir, and there'll be some holes on it, and you insert the plants in a pot. The roots would be in contact with the nutrient solution, um, and that is how it grows. So there's no pumping here. It just always in touch with the nutrient solution. But what you should know, take note of here is the air stone here. So there will be constant bubbling of these nutrients. Um, this is very important here because uh, you might be wondering how plants will be growing in a submerged, completely submerged, because they usually roots get rotted away. Uh, so uh, to avoid that, you actually bubble the reservoir with air. So the roots come in touch with the micro bubbles, the air bubbles. So the roots need contact with the air. As long as you give that, it's completely fine. It grows fine, even if the whole roots are submerged in the water. So that's how this system becomes different. The Vic system is like by capillary action, these nutrient solution reach the roots. So it's basically sitting inside a media bed, and there's some ways of helping. You can see there are some strands hanging down. It could be roots, but if the roots are not long, there should be some other ways. So the nutrient solution can reach the roots by capillary action. So that's called the big system. Uh, the ebb and flow here is a drain and flood method. So here there's a pump here. It will pump the water. It floods the media bed. So once it start flooding, it will there's a mechanism here. Is again another plumbing device, which will actually drain the whole water inside the grow bed back to the solution. So here there's a cycle. So it floods the media bed, then drains. Then once it's fully drained, it will start flooding again. So the roots actually constantly get in touch with air and water in a cyclic manner. So that's how it works here. Um, Drip system is again just pumping water, and there will be drippers. It will be just trickling water through the roots of the plants. Uh, so it's fully moist system here. So there will be constant touch with air and water both at the same time. So it should be just dripping water through the roots. Aeroponics. This system is like there will be misters inside the soil. They'll be just spraying nutrient-rich water to the roots of the plants. So these you can see they are all basically doing same thing, but different systems, and they have different efficiencies. A little bit of aquaculture. Normally we culture um, fish in ponds. So this is just a cross section of a pond. So basically, there are dikes here. There's a border here, dike we call dike, and that's the second one here, which will hold the water. What you should note here is there's an inlet here, which you get new water from some external source comes into the system. and there is a standpipe or something which actually goes out of the system. So there's an inlet and an outlet. So there's a constant change of water all the time. So it's not sitting in the same water. There's a percentage of water exchange happening all the time. And this is traditionally how we do aquaculture. Um, So as discussed before, aquaponics is combination of hydroponics and aquaculture. So what we do here is we actually grow fish in a tank. So it's not a we grow fish in ponds. We actually grow them in a closed system. There's no water exchange. So when that happens, that water gets more from the fish waste. It gets all the nutrients start building up, and there should be a mechanism to take away all these nutrients to keep the water clean by its chemistry. So what we do here, we just pump that water to the grow bed of the where we grow plants, and that water comes back to the fish tank. So instead of that nutrient rich reservoir, here we have a fish tank. So that's the difference when it comes to aquaponics. And in this picture, I can see there are different components here which actually make the system work. Um, you have fish here, there's a tank here, and the fish need oxygen, so there will be an air stone or something inside the tank. And then you need a pump to actually pump the water to the grow bed. In the grow bed, there is plants, and the plants will be sitting in a media. Like it's just a media means just holding the plant intact. Um, and in the media, there will be bacteria growing, that bacteria that feeds on ammonia or nitrate. So these are the different components. So all these, you need all of these to make the aquaponics work. Uh, Out of all these components, the most important part is not the fish or not the plant, is the bacteria. So it's very important to keep this bacteria alive. Uh, and that's the only thing you need to do to keep the plants and fish happy. I'll explain this in the other slides. So this is a aquaculture system where it's completely closed. You grow fish in a tank, so there's no water exchange. Um, So these systems are generally called as recirculatory aquaculture systems. That's RAS. Um, so as the name indicates, the water recirculate to different systems here, and the purpose of recirculating is to clean the water. So you will have suspended solids and also these ammonia and nitrates, which is the chemistry of the water. So you have to remove all this, all the suspended solids, for which you need a mechanical filter, and for converting all these ammonia is toxic. So it has to be converted to a less toxic component, which is nitrate. And for that, we need those bacteria, and that bacteria grows in the biological filter here. So this is just a general outline, but people design this in different ways. So in this design, I think what it does is, so the cycle is just in the anti-clockwise. So it first remove the suspended solids from the water, and that clear water is pumped to a mechanical filter. So I think again the solids that are it quickly settles down, and then there'll be like floating solids. So the solids that are heavy, can get settled in that tank, and you can drain that off. The clear water will still have suspended solids, and we can filter them in the mechanical filter. So once that is done, again it's gone to a biological filter. So the purpose of this filter is to convert ammonia to nitrate, and that water comes back to the fish tank. So this is a big system where you need several components. So when you come to aquaponics, you don't have this settling tank or any filters or anything. All that job is done by this grow media here, because you have this bacteria here. So basically, your grow bed is acting as a filter. Uh, it, uh, So it can remove all these suspended solids and also convert ammonia to nitrate. So it does all that job. So you don't need many components fitting into the system. So this is just in brief, what are the different types of aquaponic systems used? Uh, you saw that hydroponics, we have like 6 types of systems, so there may be more, but when you come to aquaponics, uh, these 3 types are more widely used elsewhere. Um, so there's media based. So here the plants are growing in a media bed. There's raft based. This is the deep water culture which we discussed before. So there'll be like a thermocol board or thermoform, and then you have holes in here, and the plants will be sitting in a small pot. The roots will be hanging down in this water. So this is the raft-based aquaponics, and then there you have the nutrient film technique. So here um, you have this nutrient film channels. There are channels here, and they are connected. So you can see there is a they are fitted in a angle, so the water flows by gravity. So only thing is you have to pump to the top, and the water slowly flows by gravity, and you can connect many channels like that in a zigzag way, or the only thing you need to ensure is they are in an angle so the water keeps flowing. So that's a nutrient flow technique. Among these, the widely used one is the media based one, and for greeny leaves like lettuce or any green leafy vegetables, raft-based systems are widely used. So here I'm going to just explain what the media-based system. So that's the one which is most popular. So again, you can do this in 3 different ways as shown here. So one is the flood and drain setup. So there's a pump here in the fish tank. It pumps the water into the grow bed. So the grow bed will fill up, and then you have a plumbing device here. It's called bell siphon. So what the bell siphon does is it waits until the grow bed is full of water. Once it is full, it will start draining all that water, and the whole grow bed will be empty, and it will stop draining. So the uh, pump will be on all the time. So once the full grow bed is drained, uh, it will start flooding again. So there's a flood and drain cycle happening here. So what makes it happen is the bell siphon here. Uh, some people find difficulty working with the bell siphon. So what they do is just use a timer. So the pump will not be on for the full time. So they time it up. So like maybe 15 minutes it will pump the water. The grow bed will be full, and when the timer turns off, it will just start draining back to the fish tank. After 15 minutes, maybe it will start the pump again. So the pump will be on and off all the time, and that makes the grow bed flood and drain happening. So this is a alternative technique instead of using the bell siphon. The third system is where you actually don't drain the grow bed. It will be on a continuous flow system. So the pump will be continuously pumping, and there's a standpipe here. So it will just keep flooding, and the water goes back to the fish tank. So it's a continuous system. And this grow bed will be full of media as well. So these 2 systems, the picture doesn't show that, but it will be like this. Just the bell siphon is missing in here and here. So there will be just a standpipe. So the water will fill up to the top and then overflow through the pipe. I think this is a video to actually show you how the flood and drain thing works. Basically, you have a fish tank here. There's no fish picture here, but assume this is a fish tank. This, you can see there's an air stone, there's a pump here, and it is actually not pumping directly to a grow bed. It's going to a barrel here. So I think this will be like a settling tank. So do some sort of filtration, and that clear water is going to the grow bed. And you can see some plants here, and that's a air pump. And you can see there's a bell siphon here. It's not very clear, but you can see the pipe going down to the system. So inside this grow bed, there'll be a bell siphon here. I will try to play this one. So you can see the bell siphon here. So you can see the flood and drain cycle happening here. So that's how a bell siphon works. It keeps the water flooding and draining inside the grow bed. So as discussed before, the most important living organism here is the bacteria. It's not the fish you grow. It's not the plants. You should actually see this as a larger version of an aquarium. So is aquarium does the same thing. You have fish, you have a filter. So the filter in your aquarium actually clean the water, and they will host the bacteria. So this is the aquaponics is just a larger version. So what makes it different is you actually also grow plants in that filter, and that way you actually don't have to change water. If any of you have an aquarium, you have to change your water, maybe once in a month or twice in a month. But in aquaponics, you don't have to change water because the nutrients are used by the plants, so there's no nutrient buildup in the system. Um, just a more detailed version of the aquaponics here. So basically, the food you give to the fish and the fecus, which comes from the fish. So if there are leftover food, that will become a nutrient source for the in the water. Again, the fish poo, which also becomes a nutrient source. So they basically they all build ammonia, and ammonia is very toxic. So you pump that water to the media, and the media will have these bacteria, nitrobacter, nitrosomonas, all these bacteria actually feed on ammonia and nitrite. So basically the cycle is you will have ammonia. The ammonia is converted to nitrite. So the nitrite is this one. Nitrite is again toxic for the fish. The nitrite is converted to nitrate by some bacteria. So nitrate is not very toxic, but in very high quantities it will be toxic. But fish can tolerate the high percentage of nitrate. Basically, the plants can tolerate all of these. So ammonia, nitrite, nitrate, they all become fertilizer for plants. So there's no issue with the plants. The toxicity is for the fish. The only thing you should have in the water is a nitrate, zero tolerance for ammonia and zero tolerance for nitrite. So it's very important you have to build up this beneficial or good bacteria in your grow bed before actually, putting your fish into that system. So there are different designs and systems around the world. Aquaponics can be grown. The major research in aquaponics is all gone into how you design that system. But the most basic version is this one. What you see in the left here is the IBC tank, or I think it's called intermediate bulk container. These are used for transporting large quantities of liquid matters, so like oil or chemicals. So these are like 1,000 liter big tanks, and there's a metal framework outside to keep that plastic, to stop breaking that plastic. uh, so what normally people do is just cut the 25% on the top and uh, flip that, and that becomes a grow bed. Rest of the tank becomes the fish tank. So you need only one of those actually to start a small system in your backyard. Uh, uh, but people have used if you are very passionate, you can, if you think you can expand your farming, you can buy more of these and make more systems. So this is one example of how someone has designed a system. So basically, that is a um, fish reservoir is pumped to three barrels. Here you can see there are three different types of filters. So one is kind of a settling tank. One is passing through some sort of media to convert the ammonia to nitrate, and then you have this nutrient film channels here, and that water goes back to the fish tank. This is another example of showing the settling tank. So you can see this water comes into the barrel here. You can see the waste settle down in the bottom, and that clear water is taken from the top, and that is fed to the grow bed. People also design vertical farming. So the pipe, the just water comes through is dripped from the top, and there'll be holes made in these pipes, and you can like a pocket kind of thing, and then you can grow your vegetables inside that pocket. So the water will be always dripping from the top, and all that water is collected in the bottom, and then that is taken back to the fish tank. Again, just showing more, there are more complicated designs. So you can make it very simple, and also you can make it very complicated. So I mean, when you expand, and when you scale your production up, uh, and if you go to more commercial scale, you actually need more components, you will need more filters, and these all will actually add to your cost. um, it's um, it's not I'm not very sure how commercial ones how many of them are actually successful. It's mostly run as a hobby, but the only one commercially successful aquaponics I can think is production of lettuce or leafy vegetables. Um, yeah, so I've seen big farms of growing lettuce or any green leafy spinach or something. And in that case, they use the deep water culture or the nutrient film. Also, I don't have seen in a commercial setup. Uh, but the point of this slide is that you could have more components here. So in the system, there's a solid separating tank. There's a biofilter here. There's a some so that can be just more complicated. Media. So in a media based system, you need media. So the media is can be anything to which the plant can attach. I mean, the roots need something to hold on, uh, and the media. So media's purpose is only to hold the plants, and the second most important purpose is to host the bacteria. So the round pebbles you see, these ones are clay, actually clay pebbles. Uh, they don't have any nutrients. Any of these medias don't have nutrients. But that one is a popular one for hydroponics or aquaponics because uh, it's expensive as well. They are very porous, so there's more surface area for the bacteria to sit and So you can grow more bacteria in these um, clay pebbles. They are lightweight, so that means your grow bed won't be too heavy. And also you can once you harvest the plants, you can actually you can just tap it on a tank and all these pebbles will fall off and you can reuse them. And also it won't hurt the roots of the plants. So if you use like a metal or scoria, what you call scoria, which is the sharp edges of the rocks will actually can damage the roots. Some people use river pebbles. That is good as well, but it would be too heavy. Your grow bed should be very strong to hold that much weight. So the clay pebbles have a lot of advantages, but it's very expensive as well. The other important thing is your water chemistry. When you grow fish, you have to keep an eye on the chemistry of the water. Uh, it's more important for the fish, because fish will be the one getting affected. Obviously, your bacteria will get affected first, uh, then the fish. The bacteria is very sensitive, they're small organisms, so big changes in the water chemistry will actually kill the bacteria. You probably don't even notice, because the fish will can tolerate some changes, but bacteria is very sensitive. So anything that cause a change in the chemistry of the water. If you're planning to do a water change, you don't do a water change in aquaponics. You actually only top it off, because your water get evaporated, and you have to top it off. So even if you're doing a top off, you can't do like 50%. Just add like 20%, 25% a day. If the water is too low, don't fill it up quickly. You have to gradually do the fill that tank in many days. But first of all, when you start the system, you have to ensure the water you use is very clean. Uh, there are different sources of water as listed here. Some people use borewell water. Borewell waters will have the high general hardness, so the calcium and magnesium salts will be high. So this will increase the general hardness of the water, and that's not actually very good for the fish. Uh, I think the fish can tolerate a bit, but too high levels it won't be able to tolerate. So if it's too high, you actually have to use a RO unit or reverse osmosis unit. That will actually make your hard water to soft water. So basically remove all that calcium and magnesium salts. But again, the water from reverse RO unit will be too soft. The water you'll be using ideally shouldn't be too soft and not shouldn't be too hard. So these are measured in KH here, so degree. So your not KH, it's yeah. Anyway, so it should be around 10, 8, I think 10 to 15 to the maximum. So that's the general hardness. The carbonate hardness is different, but the units used are same. Um, then the other source of water is the council water. So you should, if you're using the council water, you should be expecting some chlorine in it, and that's not good for the fish or bacteria. So you have to treat the water before you use them for aquaponics. So normally you add chemicals to remove the chlorine, but if you don't have chemicals, you could just keep the water in a barrel with an aerator, just bubble the water, or leave the water under sun for a day, so all the chlorine will be oxidized. So basically you age the water and then you can use it. um, if you're using your river water, creek water, then there'll be many undesirable organisms in it, like microplankton. So it could be beneficial, but it could be also harmful, some parasites or pathogens. So you can again you probably use a filter or a mesh to filter the water before you use. And then what you need is to check the chemistry of the water every day. It sounds like a big job, but it's mostly what you need this only in the beginning of the system, because as you grow with the system, in a few months you will know how it works. You will know if there is any problems in your system, so you wouldn't need checking them every day. Basically, for my system, if my fish is happy, my plants are happy, I don't really go and check all these parameters. But if I see any signs of problems, any clinical, any signs fish is struggling or my plants are melting, like yellow leaves, or and then I will check the water chemistry. But in the beginning, when you start the system, you need to check this every day, because your bacteria will be still building up in the grow bed. It will be populating, and until it saturates the grow bed, you have to keep an eye on the water chemistry. The most important one is the pH. So it should be around 6.5 to 7. 7 is told as neutral, but 6.5 is a little bit better, because the plants can is at its maximum efficiency in absorbing all the nutrients from the water. So ideally it should be 6.5, so it can use all the nutrients from the water. Carbonate hardness shows the is a measure of the carbonates and bicarbonates in the water. This is most people overlook this parameter, but this is the, I would say, the second most important. So I put them in their priorities. So pH very important, and the second one I look. I mean, if the temperature is not fluctuating, uh, if it is highly in a very highly dynamic environment, the temperature will become a more important one. But otherwise, carbonate hardness, or it's also called alkalinity. It's not Alkalinity is not alkaline, so that's again some mistake most people make. Acidity and alkaline is different. High pH is alkaline, low pH is acidic. But alkalinity is the carbonate hardness. Is both are same, the two different terms. It shows the measure of carbonates and bicarbonates in the water, and this is very crucial, because that gives the buffering capacity to stop the pH fluctuations in the water. So if you 3 to 4 is the ideal one. So there won't be too much fluctuations in your pH. If it is too soft, like less than 3, the chances of pH fluctuations is high. So you always have to keep a little bit carbonate hardness, and if you use the reverse osmosis water, or it will be too soft, and your pH is likely to fluctuate more frequently, and that fluctuations is actually going to stress the fish. So for fish, it don't like all the any of this chemistry. If they fluctuate in a very random or frequent way, it's going to struggle the fish. If you have any one of these parameter a little bit higher than the ideal, but you can keep it stable, that's even better than keeping them in an ideal range, but with more fluctuations. So for example, if your unit is having a pH of 7.5, but it is very stable, it's better to keep that way than trying to reduce it to 6.5. But if that pH doesn't it's not stable, it keeps fluctuating between 7 and 6.5, it's not good for the fish. Also, when you one thing you should know is these pH units, 6.5 to 7. It looks only like 0.5 difference, but in effectively, 0.1 is a tenfold difference in its effects. So 6.5 to 6.6 is quite a big effect to the fish. I mean, it can tolerate that range, but a straight jump from 6.5 to 7 is like a 54 difference. So don't get misunderstood by these numbers. The 0.1 is like a 10-fold difference. So the other chemistries you have to look is ammonia and nitrate. It should be 0 ppm. Some fish can tolerate up to 0.5, but I don't know, 1 ppm or 2 ppm could kill the fish. So it should be 0 ppm. But your nitrates can go to 80 or 100 ppm. So that's the difference. That's why we need all that ammonia and nitrate to be converted to nitrate. Then also you have to check the major nutrients, which is the NPK, nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium. These are not for the fish. Essentially, these are for the plants, because we are growing plants and they need nutrients. So some systems may lack one of these. Most probably the potassium. You get nitrogen, phosphorus from the fish feed and the fish poo, but usually potassium becomes a limiting nutrient. So occasionally you might have to add this from an external source, like adding them using chemicals. And if you, just for your information, maybe some of you know, nitrogen, they have different effects to the plants. So if you have nitrogen, it helps the plants to grow more greeny growth, like growing the whatever you see in the above the root. It's all the nitrogen helps them growing. Phosphorus is more for the roots, root development, and the potassium is for flowering and giving the fruits. So in most aquaponic system, you can see they grow very well but doesn't fruit. But if it is not fruiting, that's because you have this. You need more potassium in that system. Um, Trace elements. So trace elements, there are many, but most important one is the iron, and that's what most people get a deficiency of iron, and that affects the system. So in that case, you have to add iron again as a nutrient supplement. The last one, general hardness, we talked about it already, and you can see the priority is at this, the last one I have put in here. So the most important one is pH, carbonate hardness, I would say. You need a water pump to pump this nutrient-rich water from the fish tank to the grow bed. There are many pumps available, and some of the Chinese made are, it can break pretty often. So it's important you should actually get a pump that works and lasts for a long time. And also, if you are on a timer, it's not good for the pump. That turning on and off all the time, it's not good for the pump. Um, but but it should work. I mean, one of my system is on a timer, so, and my pump has been running for a year now, no issues. But I have heard they might have problems. Your pump, the life of your pump will be less if you keep turning on and off all the time. When you buy a pump, what you need to know is the how much head it can pump. So you can see the head here. Head means how much, up to what height you can pump this water from the fish tank. So if your grow bed is like 1 meter high, ideally you should be looking at this number here. So these are different models of pump here, and usually the number they tell you is the uh, volume of water that it can pump from 0 meters. But as the height increases, the amount of water it can pump reduces. So for this model, you can see at 1.5 meter, it cannot pump any water at all. So I yeah, so but the number displayed will be the 0 meter height. So you should always get a chart like this. Some companies provide, some don't. If they don't provide, you have to go and find a reference what probably what like how much water it will be pumping out. So and again, the more head it has, it will be more expensive. The pumps will be more expensive. So usually in the IBC tanks, what we show is it would be like 1.5 meter height to the grow bed. And the pump I use is this one PV1600. So basically that tells you 1900 liters in an hour. But effectively, I will be getting like 475 liter in an hour, I think. So that's what you have to look when you buy a pump. Uh, when you start a aquaponic system, it's important to actually grow your bacteria first before adding your fish. So, and this procedure is called the system cycling. So this is a procedure, few points how you uh, uh, cycle your system. So system cycling just means you are, inoculating bacteria and letting them grow to a big population high enough so they can process all these fish waste, ammonia and everything to nitrate. So if you look at the graph here, the x-axis is in days and y-axis is showing the amount. So you can see this red one, ammonia. So uh, when you start the system, you have no fish, and then that means there is no source for ammonia. So what you can do is actually add some chemicals, um, uh, like urea or something, or you can actually sacrifice. If you're willing to kill some fish, there's no harm in adding, maybe some cheap, no, cheap fishes, maybe. What do you Depending on the size of the system, you need to figure out how many fish. So basically you can start with a live fish which you can sacrifice. You can add, or second option, you can add a chemical that will add ammonia to the system. Third option is actually to put dead fish. You can buy some seafood like a prawns or something, dead fish. Just put the dead fish in it, and it decomposes and generate ammonia. Um, and what you need to do is pump that water to the grow bed um, all the time. So the ammonia goes to the grow bed, and the bacteria will usually establish by themselves. But if you want to boost that, you get this beneficial bacteria from the pet store or aquarium shops. They sell these bacteria in small vials, and you can just add one of them in your system, and that really, it's a procedure of inoculating bacteria. Uh, so, and from day one, you'll be checking, you'll be testing how much ammonia is there, nitrite and nitrate. So, and that's how you get this graph. You can see here, first 5 days there is only ammonia, and then from day 6 or 7, you can see this nitrate start coming up. So basically, some of this ammonia is being converted to nitrate by that by the bacteria. And after 20 days, ammonia disappeared, and it's only nitrite. So this doesn't mean there's no ammonia generated in your system. It's just that all the ammonia generated is immediately converted to nitrite, so you won't see much ammonia staying in the water. It all get converted pretty quickly by the bacteria to nitrite. And then you can see nitrate coming up from day 10, slowly building up. So eventually what you need is ammonia should come down to zero, and nitrite, which is also toxic, should come to zero. So based on this graph, it's showing from day 40 you're safe. Day 40 you can add your fish, and there'll be only nitrate in your system. But this is just a graph, and some system, but this is all a guideline. It could be 4 weeks or 5 weeks, 6 weeks. It depends on how you set up your system, how much microbial load is there, and how you actually, what method you choose to introduce the ammonia, like in the first step. So they all matters. Some people even urinate in the tanks, so because your urine contains ammonia and nitrites. So if you can't buy anything, some people suggest just to urinate. um, what else in here? So yeah, that's how what it is. So basically, you need to grow your bacteria first, but your plants can go when you start the system, because all the ammonia, nitrate, and nitrates are fertilizer for the plants. So it's only the fish you can add at a later stage, but you can start growing your plants. It's completely fine when the bacteria start establishing your grow bed. The other component you need is the aerator or air pump. And when you have places where, when you have power cuts or anything, you probably also need a backup, some aerator that works from a battery. Again, depending on how many fish you have in the system, if it's like 2 or 3 fish, it's probably not going to affect with the power cut. But if the density is too high, you would need some backup which actually run when there's no electricity. You could install solar panels. There are pumps available that work with the solar panel, and then you're completely safe. The man here on the left is called, his name is Murray Hallam. He's from Australia. So if any of you are interested in doing this aquaponics as a course, he's pretty famous. He have these aquaponics courses online. Pretty expensive, but many farmers in India have taken his courses and built big farms. I think in Andhra Pradesh, somewhere Madhya Pradesh or somewhere, there are a few couple of, even from Kerala actually, there are farms who were his students. They do these online courses. Uh, in the background, you can see the vertical tower-like aquaponic system, where they're called vertical gardens. Again, this is a video showing how the bell siphon work. Let me see if you can make it work here. Yeah, that's a deep water culture. You can see the roots hanging from the walls. So that's the bell siphon working. So it drains the water, then breaks the siphon. This is the deep water culture. You can see the air bubbles coming in. So that's flooding now. You reach the top and then start draining. All right. You also need to add nutrient supplements often. Yes, you have this fish tank, and all these fish waste becomes nutrients, but many times we have seen, that nutrients is not complete for the plants. There are some nutrients are deficient, and you have to supplement this from externally. So one of the most popular one is the sea salt, which is a seaweed liquid. um, so anything you add to the system, you have to make sure it's not going to affect the fish. And the best one will be always to use organic. So sea salt is organic, so made from seaweed. What it does is it can supplement all these trace nutrients, trace elements, and also some nitrates to the system. Some people use like a one jar of sea salt for actually inoculating the ammonia in the initial stage when you start the system cycling. Um, well, yeah, I normally put a 2 cap full of sea salt once in a week to my system, so to ensure it gets all other nutrients. You get it always get nitrate, nitrate and phosphorus from my fish feed or the fish poo. But again, potassium or iron, or there are many trace elements that so to make sure I have everything in my system, I just add one cap of sea salt. Sometimes your potassium will be deficient, and when your plants are growing very well but not fruiting when it is supposed to fruit. Like in some seasons, you are expecting them to fruit. If it's not flowering, just you probably had to add a potassium. That's the brand I use. It's a liquid potash. Uh, just again, I just add one cap full of potash uh, once in a week. If it is not fruiting, if everything is going well, you don't need to add any external nutrients. That's a calcium and magnesium. Some areas have this soft water, and then you don't. So the general hardness will be very low. So you need some calcium and magnesium there. So these are supplements are available for that purpose. Again, for potassium, if your alkalinity is low, like the carbonate hardness is low, uh, and if you don't have any potassium in your system, this is a good chemical to add. It's potassium bicarbonate. So basically, it has the carbonate that will increase the alkalinity, and also there's potassium which actually helps fruiting the plant. So normally, if you have a low alkalinity, it's best to actually add potassium bicarbonate, because everything in that chemical component helps the system. It helps the water chemistry to come up, and also helps the plants to fruit. Um, then most people see the deficiency of iron, and this is very important. You can see the iron deficiency from the leaves. Uh, the leaves, you can see they are yellowish, but the veins are green. So these are the signs for you can observe the leaves, and you can tell what trace metal is deficient. Uh, so there are many chemicals suggested for iron, but the best one that works is the EDDHA. The graph here actually show different methods people use for improving the iron component in the water. People have used all of them. So what makes EDDHA different is it can work at all pH levels. So you can see this is a graph showing from pH 4 to pH 10, and you can see the absorption rate of the EDDHA by plants is same constant, but other chemicals, they don't work at some pH. So if you have a high pH, probably none of the other chemicals is going to work. This is just an example. You can see this many online. If you Google, it's basically showing how your leaves look like if there is one of these nutrient is missing or deficient. So that's for iron. You can see yellow leaf with green veins. That's completely yellow and a drooping leaf. That's a deficiency of copper. Again, it's also important where that leaf occurs. So if that deficiency is on an older, like an adult leaf, it means different. Okay, so that one is from a younger leaf, so that's a calcium deficiency. So it's also important whether that leaf is a new leaf, young leaf, or an old leaf. So yeah, you can see many examples online, and just showing this for a guidance. Yeah, just feel free to go through it. And I mean, if one of some of these nutrients you probably don't get from market to introduce. So if you get like a deficiency like zinc, or probably sulfur, boron, you don't get anything like boron to buy and introduce. So maybe the best way is to add is trace metal mix. You get trace element mix. So it will have everything in it. So just slowly dose some of the mix, and that will improve all the trace metals in the water. Our next question is what fish we can grow in aquaponics. probably not all fish are very successful. Um, there may be many reasons, but some people have, I mean, some fishes are very popular. So in Australia, people grow jade perch. I don't have a picture of jade perch. So, the picture you see here is my system. There are two systems here. So I've been growing jade perch, but I didn't like the taste, so I switched that back to barramundi. So barramundi is the lattice calcarifer. So in Kerala, it's called kalanji. Uh, uh, Barramundi is an Australian name, and Australians actually don't like people calling it a barramundi in other, when their origin is from other countries. Um, so right now in my system, I have like 15 to 20 barramundi growing. But people have grown catfishes, carp, salmon in cold, temperate places. People grow salmon or trout. Silver perch also grown pretty well in Australia. In India, tilapia is a favorite fish to grow, and it's easy. It's also a little bit vegetarian, um, whereas barramundi is kind of you need a more protein-rich feed. So usually I feed fish pellets. So then many people grow ornamental fishes, and they are completely fine. If you're planning to grow in a big way. Um, but generally, I think most of these, if the fish don't need any specific requirement, generally all of them should grow. Uh, Particularly trout. If you say what is the special requirement, salmon and trout need a very specific. They can't grow in a tropical environment, so it need a cold water. So so things like that, and what feed they feed. Your system you should have the ability to feed them. uh, it's easy to grow something that actually feed on the pellets. If you grow sardines or anything, it's again, I don't know how you do it, but there's a picture here. Someone says the sardines are grown somewhere in aquaponics. I don't know. That's a video of my system when I was growing jade perch. So I'm just transferring one fish from one system to another one. That's a jade perch. The other important thing is the size of the fish. When you start a system and when you introduce fish, you're probably getting a small fish. Um, so one thing you should know is, whether that fish waste generated that by fish is enough to feed the plants. So if you put small fish and only maybe 5 or 10 of them, probably not enough. So when you start growing fish, you probably have to put maybe 50 or 15. So that's in my system, which was like 700 liters or 800 liters. I was putting like 35, 40 fishes. It depends on the size of your system, and how many fish. It depends on the stocking density. If you go online, you could get these numbers. Some fishes grow better in some stocking densities. So have a good reference, look on the research, how many fish is better for some species. For barramundi, is probably not a good idea to keep too many, because they will when they grow, there will be differences in size, and they actually fight each other. The bigger one will actually kill smaller ones. So in that case, you have to grade them. So you have to always keep fish with similar size. I mean, when only with species which actually attack each other. So in the case of barramundi, if you don't grade, probably you're going to lose 80%, 50 to 80% of what you stock initially. It's also important when they grow, the space, the fish tank is probably not enough for them to grow to a bigger size. So when they grow, you probably have to harvest them partially. So if you start with 40 fish, when they grow to a medium size, probably harvest 20 of them. Uh, or you can start a new system and separate, reduce the density. So you can see, there were probably in this 1,000 liter tank, you can see maybe 70, 80 fish. And when they grow up, we probably have like 6 or 7 fish in the tank. So one way is to keep all the fish, but then you have to start new systems, or simply you have to kill and, eat some of them and keep other ones for growing bigger. Uh, so that's something that you have to remember to look after, the size of the fish and the stocking density. Fish feed, what fish feed you give? Again, you should know, or, what the fish eats. Each fish have a uh, different way of eating. So you can see there are fish which feed from the surface. In that case, your pellets, whatever you give, should be floating. Some feed from the bottom. In that case, it's better to have pellets actually sink to the bottom. If there are mid-range feeders, the feeds, there are feeds actually float for some time, then slowly sink. So you should know what feed is best for which fish. And you can see there are feed of different sizes. Again, this is important. You should, for small fish, you should be using very small feed. Basically what you should know is the fish feed should be smaller than the mouth size, the mouth of the fish. So if you put small fish and a big fish pellet, is not able to eat that one. And when it decomposes, probably fish won't eat as well. They like to eat fresh, not the decaying stuff. So always check, depending on the size of the fish and what species it is, the feed you give is important to check. That's a video here. It's also when you feed the fish, you also get a feeling how healthy they are. So basically, when you go for feed, they should come and feed them. um, if they are not coming up or feeding the feed, then probably something wrong is there. So it's just a video showing how it worked for me. So I'm just throwing some pellets here. You can see all the fishes coming, and that shows how happy they are. And also never overfeed. You should feed them partially, each at a time, and see whether they can finish all that feed. Once they finish feed, you give it a second lot. So basically, you should not have any feed floating like a leftover, because the leftover fish feed is going to decay, and it can be a cause of having more fish diseases. So everything you throw in the water should be eaten, no leftovers. What plants you can grow? So I have been growing aquaponics, doing plants for probably 4 years now, and I've always been trying to grow different things. And I should say pretty much everything grows. I couldn't find anything actually don't grow. If your system is working really well, uh, uh, all of them actually grow. I have done tomatoes. I've done deep water culture. I've grown lettuce. I've grown cabbages. Capsicum I haven't tried, but that's something in my list. Cucumber I have tried. It works very well. Ginger is doing well. Ginger I have tried. Ginger is pretty expensive in Australia, so this, you can grow, which gives a good market value if you're keen to make a business out of it. But if you look on most of the veggies, you know one thing I have observed is, most of the veggies we eat are actually climbers. So uh, there are, beans, cucumber, ivy got kovaka, cucumber, tomato. They are not strong plant. They need support. They can. and they are climbers. Padalam, Pavakya, bitter gourd. So many of these vegetables, if you're planning to grow vegetables, you probably need a, like a shade structure and a support system so they can climb and grow. Um, After trying many veggies, I felt, oh, I should have a support system because many veggies are climbers actually. Uh, and then you also need a shade because depends on the place where you live. Again, if it's too much sun, and if that sun is actually uh, affecting your plants, then you need a shade structure so to filter the sunlight and also that reduce the heat. uh, so the pests are everywhere. Even if you grow in soil or aquaponics, the pest will come. So very important one thing when you grow plants in or veggies in aquaponics is that you can't use any chemicals to kill the pest, because that will also kill your fish. So because you have a living organism in your system, even and sometimes even the bacteria, these pest killing chemicals will affect, will probably destroy your system. So the only thing you can add is organic, uh, anything of organic origin. So what most people use, and I have also used this, is the chili garlic mix. um, so this is a procedure how you make the chili garlic spray. Basically, it has the garlic, chilies, and then a little bit oil, some washing soap liquid, and basically blend all of them and leave it for a day, and then filter them. Put in a spray bottle and spray it. So that will work pretty good. Uh, yeah, chili and garlic are something that insects don't like. These are different types of pests you can see in aquaponics ideally. So I have attack of white fly or velicha, mealy bugs. You can see like like this stuff. Sometimes the ants culture them on plants, so you can also see ants going around when you have mealy bugs. Uh, Caterpillar, so pretty much everything should work with this mix. I think you could also use a neem oil, emulsion. uh, I haven't tried that one on my aquaponics, but it should work. I think the dosage is important because again the fish is there. Probably any of this in too much quantity would affect the fish. So always spray them maybe, and also have a quick look and check the leaves under the leaf, because mealybugs, whitefly, they all, you don't see them on surface. It's always under the leaf. So you can spray water and just splash it off as well. So have a look under the leaf. You don't see it immediately, but they'll be heavily infested. Just have a look under the leaf. And when you have this fish tank, remember it's nutrient rich water, and that means if you put the system under the sun, it is going to grow algae. Just like the aquariums in your home, if you put the aquarium in a sunny place, you will have this algae development on the glasses. So it's again same for aquaponics, because the water is nutrient rich, and when there is sunlight, algae will grow. It's not good. It is, I mean, uh, algae can grow anywhere, but what you can do is cover the tanks with black plastic sheet, or paint them. That way the water, sunlight won't go too much into the tank. So that's one way people do to prevent sunlight. And that also means your water will be clear. It won't be looking like murky or turbid. Um, there are many problems I have faced when doing aquaponics, and that is one of the good thing that can happen to you, because you won't make that mistake again. You learn everything from your mistakes. This is my aquaponics system, which I just filmed today a few hours ago. my backyard. So basically I put a shade structure, and also there's a support system. So this is the grapevine climbing through the structure. I will play this video. It's a video actually. Yeah. Oh, trying to play this. Yeah. So that's a grapevine. These are the two systems. There are two different setups. So that grapevine is actually sitting in a pot. All these, there are pots filled with these clay pebbles, and the pots are sitting inside, just inside a grow bed with this filled with water. So the water is constantly flowing through that. So that's the pineapple there. There's turmeric. There is coral, ivy. So that's a bell siphon here. This one, and there's ginger here. Ginger. And that's a cabbage growing there. So that's one system. This is the second one is fully filled with grow media. So the first one was only in the pots. The good thing is you can take the pots out, clean them, and put it back. Here is fully filled with media, and that you can see there's a couple of papaya tree growing, and they are fruited as well. And there's a passion fruit just started growing. Passion fruit. And you can see these tanks are fully covered with shade cloth, and you can see the bar inside. See the eyes, you can see the eyes here. So they are waiting for the fish feed. So they know I give the feed at that time, so they're just waiting for my feed. That's the water coming back from the grow bed. And you can see the water, and it will be a little bit brownish all the time because of the nutrient richness, and also when you add sea salt, and it will give that little brown color to the water. This is on a timer, so there's no water flowing at the moment. So it's on a 15 minutes on and 15 minutes off. So at the moment, no water flow inside because the pump is off, but it will start after 15 minutes. That's coriander, which is grown like a big thing there. It's like perennial coriander. That's a bell siphon. I'm just going to have a look inside, and you can see there's a cover for the standpipe. There's a standpipe inside, and that's a cover. And the external cover is to stop the media going inside, but you can see the roots are there. You have to clear this root sometimes to make the bell siphon work. But at the moment, this is on a timer, so it's not fully working based on a bell siphon. And I used to do planted aquariums at home. This is on a constant flow, so this is not on a timer, but continuously pumping. So you can see there's a standpipe, and the water is all flowing all the time. In some pots, you can see empty, but it's not empty actually. There's some algae. So these are used in planted aquariums. So I just put a little bit of little frag inside, and they started growing by itself. So I'm just showing, this is a good way of growing, planted aquarium, aquatic plants as well. So I mean, you don't need a big system. This is just sitting in a small pot, and I don't take care of it at all. It does the job. So the problems I felt is just listed over here. First thing was all the solids, because there's no settlement tank. So all the fish waste, everything was pumped back into the grow bed. And the grow bed is actually filling up with this silt and or dirty thing. So basically, you need a what happens is sometimes is your pump will get clogged with all these solids, and then you have to clean the pump occasionally. So I used to clean them like once in a week when it was continuously on and pumping all the time. But now I need to clean only once in 2 months because it's on timer. It's not pumping all the time. Then second thing is I put the pump on the bottom of the tank. That means all the fish waste will be sucked by the pump. So the lesson learned is always keep the pump a little high, not on the bottom. So I put some bricks and put the pump on top of it. So you can stop sucking everything, but you can still get some suspended solids. But that's fine. It's the hard waste which actually clog the pump. So that's one way to stop the clogging. Silt accumulation, that's what I told before. Everything just goes into the bed. So ideally, you should have a settlement tank, and only that clear supernet and clear water should go back to the grow bed. There should be some flow regulator tabs. This is to adjust the flow of the water going into the grow bed, because the bell siphon works with the flow rates. If the flow rate is too much, the bell siphon won't work. It will be just constantly flooding all the time. If it is too low, again, there's issues. Which is why actually I went for a timer and just running on a different setup. It can work well if you do the plumbing very well, if you design it very well. My system, the IBC system, have a not it's not a good strong plastic that makes the bell siphon work. It's a bit dodgy with the bell siphons. There's always potassium deficiency for me. And I had to add liquid potash most of the times because I don't think there's source of potassium anywhere. So most of times everything grows very well but don't fruit, and that we grow them for fruit, so you have to add this potassium occasionally if you think it's not fruiting enough. Iron deficiency, I have faced it only once. I think most people face it in the beginning of the system when you start the system. uh, and it's called chlorosis, iron deficiency. You can see that leaves. But yeah, and I added iron EDDHA, but I added only once, maybe 3 years back, and I never needed to add again. But I have a full bag of EDDHA at home, so it's good to add them occasionally, even if you don't see much deficiency. Um, then water change or top up. Water change sometimes is needed if you see if there is any disease, fish disease, or if you think there is problems with the water, water chemistry. But most of the time you don't need. All you need is a top up, and I don't top up more than 30%. So especially when there is no rain, summertime, evaporation is too much, and then you have to top up again. Never more than 30% at a time, even if that level is too low. So if you need to add 60%, do it in 2 or 3 days. Too much sun is a problem. Australia is very hot, and there's so much sun and heat. So I installed a shade for it. Then most veggies are climbers. Again, you need support. You may not realize this in the beginning, and then you start installing something very cheap and it breaks at some stage. So it's better to have something, some strong support in the beginning itself. And also you can use that support to actually put a shade cloth, so there's shade, and especially new systems need shade. You cannot be exposed to full sun. um, Air pump pressure. So if you have many systems, you have to ensure your air pump can push air through that water. because if you split your air to different systems, and that water pressure will stop the air coming through, so then your air pump should have more power to push the air through it. So you have to work on that one. Yeah, so that's everything. I think most of you face problems and you find the reasons, and you have to quickly resolve one at a time. So the system you see here today is not a not a one time build up. It has been modified many times, and based on my mistakes. So that's the end of my talk. So if you have any questions, feel free to ask.
Thank you very much, sir, for this very informative and interesting session. Now it's up to you, dear participants. You can type your questions in the Q&A box. Sir, I can see some questions in the Q&A box.
Already.
Should I read it for you, Deepak sir?
Yeah, I can see 7 questions. So
Yes, sir.
what is the Professor Ashish Kapliel? What is the minimum area that is needed to make this economically viable, and what will be the total cost of this area? Yeah, it's a commercial question. I haven't done this in a commercial scale, only in my backyard. But I heard from when you research online, you can see many people talking about it, and most of the feedback I see is it's not something. If you do it on a commercial scale, you have to plan it very well. You should know what are the expenses, and so the only way it can work is if you grow like high value fish and plants. So any fish which will give you return good value, and also the plants should so that's the only way to make it economical. And basically latest occurrency is good one, let's say premium fish. um, then plants, on commercial scale I've seen only lettuce or salad leaves. um, it works well in a country like Australia or Europe. I don't know how much it will, what's the market, how it works back in India. But having said that, there are farms in Andhra Pradesh which I know have seen them online, like big farms growing leafy vegetables. Um, what's the minimum area that's needed? I don't know. It depends on how much you produce. Um, yeah, minimum area, you have seen my system, right? So it's not commercial, but you can even do aquaponics in your aquarium. Just there was a picture in one of my slide. Actually, someone doing an aquaponics in the aquarium inside the house. Yeah, but on a commercial scale, I'm not sure what's the answer for it. Sir, how can we find this stock university? It is online everywhere. Just Google it and you'll. But on a general rule, I never had to look online. I get a feeling, it's too much or too less. So in an IBC, I start with maybe maximum 50 fish. But again, I think what I'm going to do with 50 fish. I don't have any other systems to keep them. So what I do is I stock less. I stock 25 fish or 30 fish, and I know that fish face is not going enough for the plants. So I add the sea salt or just add nutrient supplements to the water. So that be enough to feed the plants. But when the fish grow larger, I stop introducing these supplements. And then they grow very large. I have two systems, so I split them into two. So that's how I do it. That's for backyard farming. But if you're doing commercial, there are many booklets or research papers out there. Even if you look on the research institutes, they will be having standard numbers for each species, like how much you can stock. These are mostly based on the pond aquaculture. Aquaponics, for aquaponics specifically, there won't be much references, but this is a general rule, you will know, if you stock less, your plant is not going to grow well, and then you can supplement. If you add too much, the fish will be showing signs of struggle. So that's a practical way to determine whether your density is high or low. Rishikesh Power asking how well sea bass grows in freshwater or it needs some salinity. Um, Sea bass is a common name used for different species, but I think what Rishikesh refers is the lattice barramundi. Um, uh, Barramundi can tolerate, salt water and fresh water. So I grow them in freshwater, but they were, they were hatchery produced from seawater. So again, it's not, you transfer them some full salt water to the freshwater in one day. It's not just straight jump. It's a gradual process. So I bring them from the hatchery, put it in a bucket, and then maybe add like 10% fresh water, put an air pump and leave it there for maybe a few hours, then add a little bit more fresh water. So eventually you keep adding that fresh water and that salinity goes really low. And then you transfer them in a full freshwater system. So you can do that in freshwater or salt water, but generally I think it'd be more tasty if you grow in salt water. But again, aquaponics is a freshwater system. You could probably do in a saltwater aquaponics, but then it's not saltwater is not easily accessible, so I haven't seen much examples doing that. But I think it's possible, but I haven't seen any examples of people doing that. Tanaji Patel. So asking two questions. One question is ratio for aquaculture and hydroponic unit in terms of is it liter? I don't know. I think yeah, ratio generally it's best to have more grow bed than the aquaculture one, because it's the bacteria is important. So having more bacteria is more good for fish and plants. So generally I would say having a you know yeah, but when you say hydroponic unit, I think what he means is the grow bed. So having a little bit more grow bed helps the whole system. The second question is there a requirement of filter for all aquaponic systems? Um, there are, yeah, filter is important because filter is the place where the bacteria live, and it's the bacteria actually converts the ammonia to nitrite. Um, Having said that, deep water culture, some people do without it. I have done it without it, but my plants didn't do well. So I think when you do deep water culture, you need an external filter. Um, so I think filter is very important. But when you have grow bed, you don't need an external filter because the grow bed itself is a filter. But if you do a deep water culture, then you need something filled with media so it can host the bacteria and process all the fish waste. JRDS asking, is the pH range of water to be maintained in aquaculture and aquaponics same? Not same. For aquaculture, you have the flexibility to um, uh, move a little bit around. I mean, when you talk about aquaculture, you can talk about freshwater or salt water. And again, salt water, seawater is like around 8.2, 8.3, and it's buffering capacity. Seawater have a buffering capacity, so pH is not much important when maybe there. But when you come to freshwater systems, usually look around to keep between 6 and 7 or 7.5. Aquaponics also you can move around a little bit, but ideally what I said is 6.5. But if it is too hard to keep water at 6.5, don't add buckets of chemicals into it. Just leave it to the pH where it likes to sit. If it is 7.5, that's fine, and I just make sure it's not going like beyond 8.5 or something. Should do okay. Rishikesh asking what size of aquaponics unit is required for 4-person family to grow their own vegetables and fish. Well, my family is 4. Um, two kids and 2 adults. I am doing 2 systems, and I think, well, if you want to, I still buy vegetables. So this is only kind of like a passion or something. Some people like to grow their own food, but you cannot live with it. You still have to buy some vegetables or something. But if you want to grow everything what you want, you probably need more systems, not 2. Probably need 4, 5, or 6 systems. Then you should also have the time to invest on it. You probably have to spend it's like a full day work. Then if you have 6 or 7 systems, you can't go to any other work. So having 2 systems, I spend like 10 minutes a day just to check that what is flowing, pump is working, air is working. If something is not working, then I have to spend 30 minutes or 45 minutes to fix things. These days, maybe 5 minutes or 10 minutes, just feed the fish, check the aerator is working, whether the pump is working, fish is happy, plant is happy, that's it. That's all I do now. Stella Bai is asking, can I get the detailed content for aquaponics? Think I have pretty much summarized everything in these slides, but yeah, detailed content, you have to go for a book or something. I don't have any books with me, but there are so many online resources. There is one PDF floating in the internet. Just Google it, IBC Aquaponics. The tank which I showed, intermediate bulk container, IBC Aquaponics. So that book actually show you examples from different people how they design their system. So you can see each person have their own design. So people keep changing the plumbing and all the designs to whatever works best for them. Not necessarily it will work for you, because it depends on what space you have, whether you have the resources to do that design. But if you know the principles, you can design your own aquaponics. What I pretty much talked today is the principles. So main important components, and I think the most important thing which people may overlook is your plant roots need to have that exposure to air and water. If it is always underwater, that root will decay or rot. So there should be a mechanism that your roots have an equal exposure to air and water. So whatever you design, just make sure that happens, and also your water chemistry and your bacteria, so that will solve 80% of your problems. Danaji Patel, capsicum plant flowering but not fruiting. Please give suggestion. It's flowering, not fruiting. That's interesting. I don't know straight away, but if one of my plant was showing that symptom, I would have Googled and find out what I should do. I think I have faced this problem, but it was in my garden, not in aquaponics. I think if it is too young, maybe it's not large enough for the fruiting period. But if it's only a full grown plant, then definitely some nutrient is missing. The best thing you can do is adding a trace metal mix. You get them like a powder or liquid. Start dosing them in a low quantity and see if that make any difference. Even if you don't have any deficiency with trace metals, a little bit trace metal, adding them, it's not going to harm anything. So That's probably what I will do if I don't get any answer from the Google or anything. Shashi Meshram just asking, is it economic? Uh, uh, if you're doing in your backyard, depends on what you grow in it. If you're trying to sell them, you have to grow what gives you the highest market value. So, and it depends on each country, each region, and everything. Basically, with aquaponics, your first target, we should be looking on the local markets. What produce actually gives you more value. So it's mostly on your local market. Uh, just do a research on that. If you design very well, anything can grow in your system. So it should be either the fish, which gives you good money, or the plants. So whatever it is. Um, yeah, if you need a lot of planning and determination to make it economical. Most people run it with a hobby or passion, and to get that happiness of producing their own veggies, and also I think more excitement with growing their own fish in the backyard, because that is pretty different from just normal gardening. You get yeah, people just enjoy seeing fish. uh, Danaji Patel again asking, in our system, germination of green vegetables such as spinach, methi is very good, but after week, stem become weak and plant dies. Please suggest. Usually, leafy vegetables grows very well because they don't demand much nutrients. It's the fruiting plants like tomatoes, uh, they need a lot of nutrient in the water. So spinach and methi is very good, but after a week, uh, it could be a nutrient deficiency, or it could also happen if you have too much sun. Too much sun. Yeah, I think something is wrong there. If the plant dies, it does very well the first week, and then yeah, uh, yeah. I mean, that I don't think there's enough information to give a strong comment on it. But by looks, it could be too much sun, or it could be not enough exposure to the water if you're doing the cycling, or it could be some pathogens as well, which you couldn't probably you haven't seen it. You have failed to identify it, or it could be a nutrient deficiency. So it can be anything. I think there's need more information there. Or yeah, maybe your option is to actually show your system to a professional, or maybe a picture or video or something, and explain how you work with that system. um, Someone asking, any equations? No equations. There's no equations. Tanaji again asking, we do not add a filter or sedimentation to the system. Root clogging, is it a problem? Not clear with that question, but yeah, if you don't have a filter, um, I mean, my system don't have a filter, but my grow bed is a filter. So depends on what sort of grow bed is there. If it is a media based system, it should still work. Mine is working, because there is the media can hold the bacteria and everything. Uh, having not having a separate filter, actually, all that sediments can go into your grow bed and it can clog the system. That's true. Root clogging, I'm not sure what it means by root clogging. Um, but yeah, that's the best comment I can give on what is there. Uh, okay, Newton film technique. She's talking about NFT. We do not add filter. Okay, root plugging, is it a problem? Yeah. In a nutrient film, yeah, root. Yeah, if you too much root can stop the flow of the water. That can be an issue. Maybe a partial harvesting. If there are too many roots, probably that plant is already grown very well. You can harvest them. But I haven't tried a NFT personally, so there could be other problems. Maybe there are other better comments. Someone have actually done it, but I'm planning to do one. I just had to get the plumbing done. How much food can an aquaponic system produce? Well, it depends on the size of the aquaponics. If you are growing a big system, you can produce more food. And depends on what type of plant you are growing. So it's a very general question, it can, the some is very subjective. Tanaji asking, last question is it is a commercially viable system? Can you elaborate economics? Yeah, I haven't done it on a commercial scale. One of my friend have done the economics for it, for a company. Maybe if you're really after it, I can ask my friend to be in contact with you. Commercially, some people say it's commercially viable, but there are not many examples. So the only one commercially successful I have seen is growing, salad leaves, and probably growing some fish of high value. Yeah, if it's a cold water place, temperate place, trout and salmon is good, gives good value. Tropical, you could try some ornamental fish if it has a market, or else most people do tilapia. And the good thing with tilapia is, you cannot stress them too much. I mean, if your system is struggling, you can still tolerate and survive. So it's a good thing with tilapia. Some fish species are very sensitive and you need more care. So it's always better to actually, if you are expecting some money from your fish, uh, just go with something which is more, something you can tolerate all these quick fluctuations in pH, temperature, and the things. So more tolerant species. But if you're doing as a hobby, you can experiment with anything, and you can focus on your plants actually. So grow something which will, feed you very well, or which you can sell. For example, here in Australia, I have tried many things, but I'm thinking of trying just doing ginger, because ginger is like $25 a kilo. It's very expensive. So if I can produce just ginger, I can sell them, and probably I can get all the money I have spent for my aquaponics. So that's my next project. So I'm going to harvest empty one system and just put ginger. I have turmeric. I have seen them grow very well. So I have one ginger in a pot, and I think it is doing very well. I haven't harvested and seen how big it is, but I'm very positive it's doing very well. So that's it for all the
Deepak,
questions here.
there is one question in the chat box. Can you see it?
Uh,
Answered by Shibu Vardhanan, I guess he is from University of Calicut Zoology Department.
yeah, I can't see, but you can ask the question for me.
The writing is very interesting and informative. Please let me know how root is established. How root is established.
Yeah. See, when you start your system and when you plant them, you're probably planting the small seedlings. And what is very typical about them is the root is very small. Probably it won't be reaching, it won't be getting the nutrients from the water. Um, so what I do normally is, just put them pretty deep. I have this clay pebble, so it is not heavy or don't have any sharp edges, so it can it can come out of it. So I just put them a little bit more deeper, or else you can put a shade on it, and probably you have to just sprinkle some water for first few days. But if you have that good media, by capillary action, it will be always a moist environment, and that will be enough for them to grow. But if there's too much sun, it's going to kill that plant. So that shade is very important when you actually start them growing plants. So once it is established, it should be good. For root, again, for the most important nutrient is the phosphorus. So you should be having enough fish in the system. But if you're starting your system, your fish would be small, you have to supplement that nutrient. So you should be adding phosphorus to your system. um, so you have to wait and see until it establish it through I mean, you can, it's pretty the signs are obvious. Your plant will look healthy and happy if the root is established, and then still you would need the shade until they grow a little bit bigger, and don't keep under in full sun. Or if your system already has some big plants, it can just survive in their shade. So yeah, that's how it is. Is that all?
Okay, thank you, dear participants, for your question. Thank you, dear participants.
One
Now,
more.
I'd like to take this opportunity to express our gratitude to our guest, Dr. Deepak sir, for accepting our invitation and delivering a very informative and fruitful presentation on a very interesting topic, aquaponics. Thank you very much, sir. I hope most of us will try out this innovative techniques in our backyard vegetable garden. I hope so. And let us hope for the best. I'd like to thank our principal, Dr. Sunil Kumar sir, for his constant encouragement and support. A very special thanks to Dr. S.V. Manoj sir for his warm welcome address. A very special thanks to Disha madam for her constant effort in bringing out this program into a big success. I'd like to thank all the department heads and staff members for their constant support. A very special thanks to the Department of Zoology, staff members of the Department of Zoology, Sunega teacher, Hari sir, Shiba teacher, Divya T. Dharan teacher, Divya PS teacher for their constant support. And a very special thanks to all the participants for being with us throughout this webinar. Thank you one and all. Disha teacher.
The feedback form is available here. Feedback. The feedback form is available in the chat box. Deepak?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, Jisha.
Yeah. Shall we stop here?
Sorry.
The feedback form fill and button no problem. Okay.
Yeah.
Something with the feedback form.
No, it's no longer accepting responses.
Okay, I will check it. It's okay. It's okay, I think. Now it's okay. Deepak, എത്ര മണിയായി ഇവിടെ?
1 മണി രാത്രി.
ബെസ്റ്റ്. അല്ല, വൈകുന്നേരമാണ് കൺവീനിയന്റ് എന്ന് പറഞ്ഞു, അതുകൊണ്ടാണ്.
ഇതന്നെയാ കൺവീനിയന്റ്.
മക്കൾ ഉറങ്ങിയോ? എല്ലാരും ഉറങ്ങിയോ?
അവരുറങ്ങി.
ഡ്യൂട്ടി
ഈ സമയത്തന്നെയല്ലേ മറ്റു ടോക്കൊക്കെ ചെയ്യുന്നത്. ഡ്യൂട്ടി ഉണ്ട് നാളെ.
ഹലോ.
ഹായ് ദീപക്.
ഹലോ സാർ, എന്നാ ഉണ്ട്?
സുഖം.
ഉണ്ടായിരുന്നു ഓൺലൈൻ.
ഞാൻ ഫുള്ള് കേട്ടിരിക്കുകയായിരുന്നു.
ആണോ?
നന്നായിരുന്നു പ്രസന്റേഷൻ. സ്വന്തം എക്സ്പീരിയൻസ് ഷെയർ ചെയ്യാന്ന് പറയുന്നത്. മഞ്ഞളൊക്കെ ചെയ്യുന്നു, ഇഞ്ചിയൊക്കെ ചെയ്യുന്നു പറഞ്ഞപ്പോ വളരെ സന്തോഷം.
അതിപ്പോ ഒരു വലിയ പ്രോജക്റ്റാ. ഇഞ്ചിയാണ് ഇപ്പം മെയിൻ ആയിട്ട് നോക്കുന്നത്.
എക്കണോമിക്കലി ഫീസിബിൾ ആയിട്ടുള്ള.
അതെ, ഇത്രയും നാളും കാശ് മുടക്കിയതൊക്കെ തിരിച്ചു പിടിക്കണം എന്നൊരാഗ്രഹം.
വളരെ ഇൻട്രസ്റ്റിംഗ് ആയിട്ട് തോന്നുന്നു. ഇഞ്ചി, മഞ്ഞൾ, പിന്നെ പപ്പായ നന്നായിട്ട് ചെയ്തിട്ടുണ്ടല്ലോ.
ഉണ്ട്. നമ്മുടെ ഒരു ഫ്രണ്ട് വാഴ ചെയ്തിട്ടുണ്ട്. വാഴ വാഴ നല്ലതായിട്ട് വരും. വാഴയ്ക്ക് എപ്പോഴും വെള്ളം വേണമല്ലോ.
അതെ. ഞാനിത് BSc പ്രോജക്ട് ലെവലിൽ ചെയ്തിരുന്നു. അന്ന് ഞാൻ ചീരയാണ് ഉപയോഗിച്ചിരുന്നത്.
ചീര പെട്ടെന്നുണ്ട്, നല്ലതായിട്ട് വരും. ഇടയ്ക്കിടയ്ക്ക് ട്രിം ചെയ്താൽ മതി.
നമുക്ക് ഇത്തിരി സൺലൈറ്റിന്റെ പ്രശ്നമൊക്കെ. ചീരയ്ക്ക് നല്ല സൺലൈറ്റ് ആവശ്യമാണ്. അപ്പൊ അതിന്റെ ഒരു പ്രോബ്ലം ഉണ്ടായിരുന്നു. പിന്നെ
പുതിന നല്ലപോലെ വരും.
പുതിനയും അതേപോലെ മല്ലിച്ചീര ഇവിടെ ഒക്കെ ഉള്ള സംഭവമാണ്. അത് നല്ല ഗ്രോത്ത് ഒക്കെ കാണുന്നുണ്ട്.
ചീര നല്ലതായിട്ട് വന്ന മറ്റേ ചുമന്ന ചീര നല്ലതായിട്ട് ചെയ്തതാ പ്രാവശ്യം.
അതല്ല, മല്ലി ഫ്ലേവറുള്ള ഒരു പ്ലാന്റ് കണ്ടല്ലോ. മല്ലി ഫ്ലേവറുള്ള ഒരു പ്ലാന്റ് കണ്ടല്ലോ.
അതെ. അത് ഇവിടെ പെരിനിയൽ കൊറിയാണ്ടർ അതിന് പറയുന്നത്. നാട്ടിൽ വേറെ പേരുണ്ട്. നമ്മള് അതിന് ഒരു ഇല മതി ബിരിയാണിക്ക്.
ഒരെല മതി നമ്മുടെ മല്ലിയിലയുടെ ഫ്ലേവർ.
അതെ. അത് ഇഷ്ടം പോലെ ഉണ്ടായി. അത് ചുമ്മാ കടവുക.
അതിന്റെ മലയാളം പേര് അതിന്
മല്ലിച്ചീര എന്നാണ് പറയുന്നതിന്. നമ്മള് കൃഷി ചെയ്യാറുണ്ടായിരുന്നു. പിന്നെ പോയത്
എനിക്ക് എന്നെ മലയാളം പേര് അറിയത്തില്ല. പക്ഷെ വീട്ടിൽ ഉപയോഗിക്കുന്നത് അതുകൊണ്ട് അറിയാം.
അതെ. ശരിക്കും തിലാപ്പിയാണ് കുറച്ചും കൂടെ സ്യൂട്ടബിൾ ആയിട്ടുള്ള ഫിഷ് അല്ലേ?
നമ്മളെ ഇവിടെ പറ്റത്തില്ല. ഇവിടെ
ടെമ്പറേച്ചർ ഇഷ്യൂ
അതല്ല. ഇവിടെ അത് ഇൻവാസീവ് സ്പീഷീസ് ആയിട്ട് ബാൻ ചെയ്തിരിക്കുകയാണ്.
അതെ. റെഡ് തിലാപ്പിയ